Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you Hackintosh the new way from scratch. So you can see I've got a guide in front of me. It will be linked in the description below, and you can see it shows you how to set up your new way Hackintosh from scratch. This is without using our pre-made templates, but I might show them later in this video just because we've got some updates with them. Anyway, so if you look here, we've got a table of contents. Also, many thanks to Tor for putting this together, but you can see we've got a table of contents. So we're first going to create the VM. So we need some prerequisites, so we will click on that. You can see it's asking us to have a read through our Hackintosh page, so you can see this how to get started is for just the easy setup, so you can follow that if you do like. But we can select an ISO file. So today I'll just go with Monterey. So if I just right click, open a new tab and download this ISO, that'll begin to download. You might not be able to see that, but it is downloading. It says about 8 minutes to download. In fact, what I'll do, I'll just show you that now. So you can see it's downloading. And basically we're going to need that and then our OpenCore boot ISO, so we'll get that as well. You can see that is 1.7 gigs in size, which is big for an OpenCore ISO, you may say, but you can see on the guide here that it comes with some pre-made EFIs and obviously our various handy tools. So we'll wait for these, and then what we'll do is we'll get on to the next step. So you can see they're both downloaded, so we've got the macOS Monterey ISO and the HSV OpenCore. Now we're going to get on to actually uploading them to Proxmox. So you can see I've got my host here, my Proxmox host. If I expand this side and then go to local, yours might be local LVM, and then go to ISO images, upload, select file, and then you're going to select your file. You can't see me doing it because I've just hidden it, but if you double click on the folder, the file there, you can see it's populated. If we click on upload, it should upload relatively quick if you're on wired to wired, because it'll do a gigabit per second. That's if your server's capable of it. So it says task OK here, which means it's uploading, and you can see it's there uploaded there. So if we upload again, same for the Monterey ISO. So we click upload here. This might take a bit longer because obviously it's 14.5 gigabytes compared to the 1.8 gigabytes of the HSV OpenCore, but you can see it's uploading. Obviously I won't keep you waiting, but what I'll do is pause the video here and be back in a moment once it's finished. So you can see it's doing the copy command, which will copy it to our local disk. So you can see it creates a temp file. And now it's copying over to the template ISOs directory in Proxmox. Again, depending on your disk speed, it might take a varied amount of time. But what I'm going to do is obviously fast forward to when it's finished. So you can see it says task OK, so now we're ready to move on to the next step. So we've closed that dialog now, and then we're going to go on to creating the VM. So if we click create VM at the top right on Proxmox, and then we give it a name, so I'm just going to call it macOS, and then go to the OS section, you can see here we're going to do the Monterey ISO first. So we want to make sure it's on local for the storage, because that's where I've just uploaded it, and select Monterey first. On the OS type, set it to other, and then click on next. You can see then on system, we're going to set it to Q35 and the BIOS to OVMF or UEFI. Select a volume for EFI storage, so I'm just going to do it on my SSD RAID. Untick pre-enroll keys, that's very important, and tick QE mute agent. You can see that's what it shows on the guide, so you can see there's a bit more information that Tor's provided there if you need it. On next, we're going to go to disks and set the bus device to vertical block. I'm going to again put it on my SSD, and I'm going to give it a size of 128 gigabytes. You can see. Then I'm just going to turn off IO thread and tick discard and then right back unsafe. You can see again in the guide that's what exactly what the guide says. So you can put it on no cache, but you can see everything's explained here. It analogs the trim option, so you can put right back unsafe or just leave it on no cache. So let's just leave it on no cache as explained in the guide. Then CPU, I'm going to see 4 cores and just click the X there and it'll set it to default. Also, that's all you're going to need to do now, but make sure it's in 2, 4, 6, 8, 16 and 32. So you can't have 6 cores, for example. Otherwise it won't work. If we go to memory, at least 4 GB, so I'm just going to give mine 8 GB, which is 8192. You can see again, Tor shows this. Make sure balloons is off because it really does cause problem. Click on next. On network, I just untick firewall. This is optional, I'm just going to put it on this Ethernet bridge, just because that's different for me. And set the model to VirtIO paravirtualized. And then click on next and you can see a summary of what you've just done and click on finish. So now you should see at the bottom that VM111 is being created. When it says task OK, that means it's been created successfully. So now we can go on to booting macOS. Do note we can't boot macOS straight away. We need to click on summary and then you can see we need to add, under hardware, add our recovery HSVOC, which is our boot ISO under IDE 0. Add that and you can see we're now ready onto the next step. So just give us a moment and then we'll go on to the next step. So the next part is making sure that these show up as hard disks. So if we go to our host or our node there and click on shell, then do the following. Again, in the guide it tells you exactly what to do. So we're going to do nano/etc/pve/qemu server / and then the VM ID. The VM ID is here, 111.conf. So nano etc pve qemu server 111.conf. Press enter, and then in here all we're going to do is scroll across, delete media equals CD-ROM and put cache equals unsafe. Do that for both. Then if we go to the guide, scroll down, and obviously I'm doing Monterey, but if you're doing Ventura or Sonoma, please do them. I'm on AMD, so I'm going to drop down to AMD and copy these args. So I've copied them, right click, paste. Once that's done, you'll be able to see they're all here. Control X, Y, enter, so that saves the conf file. Go on your macOS VM, console, start now, just as it says on the installing macOS section. So, for example, if it does this, don't worry. We'll go to options, double click and make sure you set the boot order to IDE first and then the macOS Monterey or whatever version yours is. So make sure the boot device is set as the top one. Go to console, start now, and then we'll wait for it to boot. Again, in the guide it's all organised. You can see install macOS Monterey is there with a nice little background. Press enter, and then now we should be booting into the macOS installer. You can see the bar has appeared, so that's a good sign so far. But again, it could fail at any moment, but hopefully it doesn't for you. So you can see we're in the recovery assistant. Disk utility first, double click, and then we'll wait for it to load disks. We've got the AppleLink VirtIO block media here, our HSV tools, which I'll show you once we're in macOS, then I will install macOS Monterey. But if we go to AppLink Verte or Block Media, which is our hard disk, click on Erase, name it macOS, Erase, that'll erase our virtual hard disk. Not our physical hard disk, a virtual one that Proxmox has created. We click on Done, close Disk Utility, double click on Install macOS Monterey, wait for this to load. Once we've done, it's saying obviously this is how to set up the installation. Click on Continue. You might get a spinning wheel, no worries, it's just loading up the installer. Once it is loaded up though, you should get terms and conditions. Obviously accept them at your own risk. I'm accepting them because I've read them. If we click on our macOS disk now and click on Continue, you can see it's installing macOS Monterey on our disk. So what I'm going to do is obviously skip forward to when mine is on the second stage, which you do need to pay attention for too. But I'm just going to wait obviously until this is finished, and then we'll be greeted with another boot section. So after that part, you'll get back to this screen. So instead of just pressing enter, press the right arrow key and boot into macOS installer, because you don't want to install macOS Monterey again. So if we press enter now, you can see we're then going to get another progress bar. Not to worry though, we'll soon get a time left, usually about 30 minutes. Depending on your disk speed, does depend on how long it's going to take you. But you can see about 29 minutes for me. It does actually go down after about 5 or so minutes. But instead of keeping you waiting, I'll leave you to it. You can see we've rebooted once again, so you might have to press enter a few times on that macOS installer, just because this is why it's installing. But once we keep pressing enter, we'll finally get to the install page. So we're just going to keep pressing enter, but you can see now that the erase volume that we named macOS is now showing up. So this may be one of the last times that we have to reboot. So let's reboot back in for the final time. It should be this time. Apologies if it looks a bit different on my Proxmox. It's been quite a few days since I started this video due to plans changing in infrastructure within HSV, etc. But obviously I'm here to finish the video for you now. So you can see we've got the select country and region screen, which is great. We obviously want to select it, and we'll go through the process. Obviously I'll grab the guide back up again so we can walk through that as well. So you can see on the guide, it does show you, so Tor, who's made this guide, you can click on the images as well for a bigger view that we've made, but you can see it shows you exactly what to do. So what I'll do, instead of keeping you waiting with all this setup stuff, you can follow the guide if you're unsure, but just make sure you don't set up Apple ID because it will not work. So I'll go through the setup stage and I'll meet you on the macOS Monterey desktop. So you can now see we're obviously on the macOS desktop. So let's go back over to the guide. You can see now we are configuring macOS. So first of all, what I recommend you doing is just closing out this keyboard assistant, and then we're going to go up to Finder and click on Preferences. We're going to then tick hard disks, and then you should see 3 hard disks. We're going to double click into the HSVE one, and then you can double click here, which is our README, which will take you over to a configuration guide, etc. And we've got a few links there if you need that. But just because I'm obviously going through this in the video, all we want to do is just move this window down and just drag the Get Started folder onto the macOS desktop. Depending on your disk speed, you may have to wait a while. It shouldn't take too long. I'm here because I'm just using a SATA SSD for this. Once we've copied it over, we're then going to run the Python installer. So we can close out of this HSVE folder now. If we double click on Get Started, let's close that as well. And then first double click into Tools, right click on Python, you can see here, and click on Open. So then that will obviously extract Python. Right click on it, click Open on the package file, and this will install Python for you. So let me agree, and then put in the password. So Python will allow us to use the mount.efi command, which is a newer way to use your Hackintosh without using Open Code Configurator as such. We are going to be doing that later in this guide, but for now, obviously, you can see Python's installed. We can just close out of this, we don't need that. And then we're going to right click on mount.efi, the zip file, that'll extract to, and you'll see a mount.efi file. If we right click and open that, it'll ask if we want to install a quick action. If we click on install, that'll then open up settings, and then I believe that's it. So you'll see mount.efi there, make sure that's ticked, and that's it. So we'll come back to the tools folder later. If we go back and double click into EFIs, and then we're going to choose one of the following EFIs. So how do you choose it? So you should see on the GPU compatibility checklist that we have obviously a guide. So the NVIDIA GPUs, it's very simple. You're going to click on Legacy NVIDIA EFI. iGPUs obviously aren't fully supported yet, so you won't have any options for them. AMD is where it gets a touch more difficult. You can see native GPUs, so all of these here under the native GPUs EFI, and then the 5000, 6000 series are all of these here. So what I'm going to do is I'm on the RX 570, so I'm going to double click on the native GPUs EFI zip file. We then have that. If we double click and go inside, you can see an EFI folder. Let me just close that out. If we then go onto macOS on the desktop, right click on it, quick actions, mount EFI. It might ask for your password, which indeed it does. And basically this will mount the EFI partition. You can see it pop up on the desktop and here. We're going to then drag the EFI folder into the partition. So from empty, you should have the EFI partition with the EFI folder inside. You can see there. So with that done, we are ready to reboot the computer or the virtual machine. So if we shut down the virtual machine, we're not actually rebooting it, we're shutting it down. I'll explain why in a moment. So if we click shutdown, we then go to actually configuring the hardware again. So we'll go to hardware. We're going to unmount the IDE drives now, as we no longer need them, as we've copied over the EFI and we've copied over the getting started folder. So we can permanently erase them if you want. That's what I'm going to do because I'm not going to be using them again. And then we just want to double check that the boot order is set to virt.io. Then if we go back to console and start the VM, you should now get the same macOS screen at boot up, but there should just be macOS. So you can see there macOS. If I press on enter, it'll then boot into macOS standalone from the hard disk. The cool thing with this is, if you was to put this disk, this virtual disk, if it was a physical one, if you passed it through, if you was to put this in a real Mac, it'd boot up just fine. So enter the password once again, and whilst we wait for that, you can see we can finish up. What I recommend you do, if you want Apple ID, I'll just show you this extra step. So if you want Apple ID on your Hackintosh, what I recommend, if you go back to get started and then double click into tools, occ.zip if I can find it, right click on that and click on open, it'll extract, and then right click and open code configurator. So what we're going to do is generate an SMBIOS. So if we click on open, tools, mount EFI, mount partition. You can use the mount EFI quick action if you want, but once we're in the EFI partition, double click into EFI, then OC, and then config.plist. This window will open. We go to platform info, and then we select one of the following. I'm just going to do, for example, it doesn't really matter. I recommend doing Mac Pro 7.1, but I'm just going to show you. For example, let's do the 2017 5K iMac. Then we're going to randomly generate, so click this a couple of times on the serial number. We can configure memory, but again, that's another step that you can ask about. If we click on save, so I'll just show you for now, it should be iMac Pro, you can see, but once we reboot, it should say iMac. So if we click restart, it should now be iMac. And then once it's rebooted, I recommend creating a snapshot or a backup, whichever you prefer. I'll just show you in a moment what they are. Depending on your disk configuration as well, depends on if you can do snapshots or not. But we're back on macOS again, it's loading up. If we just log in once again and get ourselves to the desktop, go to About This Mac, you should be able to see it now says iMac. So basically you can go on System Report and you can see 18.3 iMac. Basically from now you can create your Apple ID, sign up to it, and you can insert a FenV card, you can pass through your GPU, but again you'll be able to see our pass-through guide that I've done as well. Well, in fact, Tor shows you how to pass through your GPU. But let's just go and create a snapshot. So the way I've got my storage set up, because I'm using LVM, it won't let me snapshot. But we can click back up and then back up to local, for example, because you might only have local if you want to do that. I'm just going to leave that obviously because this is just a virtual machine just to show you. But that's going to be it for this video. If you did obviously enjoy it, please do leave a like. Consider subscribing as it really helps us out. If you need any help, please do visit the link in the description below where you can go and get help in whatever way you want. So if I show you on the website about the help section, we've changed it up a little bit so you can join the environment, which is a community based forum. So anyone in the community can help you with whatever issues you have. Then we also have a service request. So if you need some help from me, Tor, Ritz, Knots, anyone in the Discord team, you can submit a service request form and opt for paid help. You can also help us again by donating to us if you're feeling generous. Well, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Goodbye.